this series of video of the week, I want to talk about vision, right? We really don't understand vision to the point of when muscles become involved. So I'm just working on what I call the water bowl technique right now with Felipe. My concentration right now is solely on his right eye. Anyone would benefit from this lesson. That's another thing about movement lesson. We are not diagnosis specific. Everyone has a way that they process movement. A diagnosis might, what you think, impede a process of movement, but in a sense it gives the system just a different way of using movement. I think that gives your brain much more availabilities to help your child, help the person you're working with, versus they can't do something because of XYZ, right? As you know, I'm a mom with a special needs child. This is why I do movement lesson, because everyone walked in my house was, you know, if he was stronger, you know, if he this, you know, if he didn't have this, you know, if he was that, you know, unfortunately, he's just not trying hard enough. I mean, everything, it was always Graham's fault. That's not the way we process movement. So I don't care if you're a professional athlete to someone that's just had a stroke. So even though you might have a little baby that you're working with, please just try out this video. I am not working again with an adult, right, that's compliant. Yes, there's going to be situations where you might have to work with this kind of lesson in sitting, let's say. That's the beauty of movement lesson. This is why I do not teach you put your finger here, put your finger there. So what I'm doing in this video is, like I said, right now I'm concentrating on his right eye, right? I'm going to be showing you a little bit of anatomy here and there with this series, but again, not anatomy specific. But with the eyeball itself, there's actually a band of muscles that go around the eye and then also goes back into like a teardrop shape of muscles, right? I'm just going to throw up a quick picture right now. Any habitual movement, let's say if he's a child that just can lie, or what parents like to say, he prefers to look to the right. Just the weight of gravity alone will start altering the way the muscles can respond to movement, right? This is why I'm always about rotation and weight transfer, because when a child is moving and looking and, ooh, there's a light and there's a fan, right? The muscles themselves are starting to organize where they are in space. This needs to happen first before the muscles know what to do with space. So if a child is left in a position, either due because they were into the NICU, let's say, or they're unable to move due to a tone situation, the muscles now will start to have its own personality, right? And we don't want that with the eye per se. So the structure of the eye can be okay, but the functionability of the eye can be impeded just based off of positioning. And then what also starts to happen is the positioning now might also start to flatten the head or prevent certain cranial movements to happen. And again, now this is where the conversation starts to continue into other areas. So just having a right eye that is off in response can, in some circumstances, prevent, let's say, a child from coming to sitting. And that's what people don't realize. They don't realize the connection of how that happens. So that being said, so in this series, I'm going to be giving you a little bit of information like I just did, and now I'm going into the lesson. When you're working just with the eye, again, you want to experience its neutral ability. Now with this touch, what I'm doing, again, you know me, I always have a rotation, right? I don't grab, I'm not linear, the body's not linear. And I always think of a functional movement. And in this case, I want Felipe, in a sense, to look up into his right upper quadrant. So he's going to be like he's looking up at the tree, let's say. Now, whether your child can do this or not. Like if they have CVI, upper quadrant vision is usually extremely limited or not at all. So this would be, let's say, a good lesson to do if your child has some form of CVI. On the other hand, and this is what I'm going to show you here now, I'm just supporting that rotation. So the rotation is coming here while I'm going up to the left. Right, so we're here, we're off to the right. Now, another reason why your child might not have upper quadrant vision if they had any sort of cannulation, breathing respiratory, because it goes from the nose around the ears and it tends to shorten the movement in here. Shunt would be another reason. So for that, and this would work with anyone, I can maintain that rotation along the brow, and I'm just rotating out through the ear. Again, just to synchronize this movement. Any child that has issues, especially with the basic ones like rolling over, I can tell you right now they have a problem with this movement. I'm not pulling on the ear, I'm not doing a stretch, I'm just trying to elongate the upper quadrant vision that I'm working on here. And I can feel that he's moving differently, he's moving better. If you're not sure, this is where I'm not getting the same response here as I am here. If you have a trouble with a child that you're working with, that they don't want you to touch their head, which is understandable, just do this while they're sleeping. So now my touch here, again, rotation, almost like, can you hear me? Right? As if his ear was coming up into play. These motions, too, of movement are very common, not to be seen in autism. Right? Autistic children tend to, in general, make it very difficult for them to use their ears and also that upper quadrant vision as a functional vision. They might get stuck, they might have that as a stim, but as far as, again, looking and pointing in airplanes, again, you think is a simple social skill, but the movement's not available here in the head, and therefore they can't do it physically with the rest of their system. Now again, I'm still supporting his head through the left. Now I'm going to just come around the entire orbit. Now, this is like touching butter without leaving a fingerprint. I'm not poking into his cheek and pulling. I'm just literally using the pads of my finger to draw his movement. By the way, another place where this would be a benefit for if your child has issues with active and passive convergence, meaning can they look down at a piece of paper on their desk and then look up at the teacher and then come back to their piece of paper. If their attention is an issue when it comes to those things, again, most likely it's a movement issue that is turning into a psychological issue. What you see is attention. So in other words, to go from their paper, they're either into the paper, and then to jump up to see the teacher. This is what people think of as more, again, autism ADD, where again, they just don't have these really clever little moves within their system. I'm now starting to go along the cheekbone. Now the cheekbone I can start to rotate down and then come back up with that rotation to look up. I would love your feedback in the group. In this series of the head and the vision, again, I'd like to continue with this in the subscription site. Please use the subscription site. Right now, what I just did with Felipe, you could be doing on a 2-month-old baby, right? It's easier for me to explain in a lot of my adult videos because they are lying there versus trying to chase a child around. Also with a child, it's very difficult for me to stop and show you a hand movement and then go back. I would lose their attention just by the lack of touch. So please don't feel that, oh, my child has CP, oh, my child has, again, movement lesson is not a diagnosis specific, it's about functional movement, right? I get it that the diagnosis comes into play, but that's okay.